Welcome to our tutorial on multi-track recording and audio effects using Audacity. We are going to start by explaining the basics.
So to start off, all of your information's kind of up here on the top. You've got these just regular basic looking sort of tools you can use here. If you want to record, you can record. It'll make you a new track. You can see right now it's recording my voice. When you want to stop, you press stop. One thing to note, when you start a recording, this little thing up here, this is sort of like, it tells you where you have selected in your sort of song. It's at the start. It would record, you'd make yourself another track, but it would start when you start again. So if you want to record a track from after or somewhere else, you just have to click and it'll show up there, and then you can record later. So as you can see, every time I record, it adds a new track. This was the first one, second one, third one. So if I want to move anything for any reason, you have to go from, this is the selection tool, you have to instead click on the time shift tool. And that means that you can move things around sideways, like that, sort of forwards and backwards in time, move it up to the next track. You can do all kinds of that stuff. Let's say I want to move all of these at once. You can do it like this individually, but it's sort of easier way to do that. So you want to select, let's say you want to move all of them at once. You select all three of them, or at least part of all three of them. You go to Edit, Clip Boundaries, and you can join. So now they're one track. And if you want to move them around, they just move around as one track. Now, let's say you want to do the opposite. You want to cut something. Decide that I want this to be two tracks. So one way, you can highlight it and just Control or Command if you're on a Mac, X to cut, and then same thing, Control V to paste. You can do it that way. You can also put your cursor somewhere, go to Edit, Clip Boundaries just like before, but instead of clicking Join, you just go Split. And just wherever your cursor thing is, just splits it from there. That's probably all you have to know for sort of your basics of Audacity.
So now we are going to progress into the more advanced functions of multi-track recording within Audacity. We will be focusing on layering and effects, and we will be demonstrating this by creating a dramatic reading and soundscape for Mortimer by Robert Munsch. We have already begun to record and will skip throughout our recording process in order to highlight the important elements of Audacity. We are starting with recording our base audio.
So we've gone ahead and recorded the first track for our multi-track recording for Mortimer by Robert Munsch. So now what we're going to start to do is start to layer on the new tracks. So if we click to the end of where we started and click record, as you can see, it's going to build right from the end. But we're not going to necessarily know what line came right before us. So the second alternative is if we click a little bit further back in the track, she threw him on the bed and said,
Mortimer, be quiet.
Then when we record, we're going to hear what came before in order to tell us where to start next. Now because we double recorded, we're going to get a little bit of crosstalk, which means we're going to hear at the start here what was set up above. And we don't want that double layering, so we're just going to delete this piece, and then we need to reposition using that move tool that we talked about in the basics, our new track to fit into the end of where we finished talking. Now I'm not placing it right at the end because I need to take the little clicking sound from our first track from clicking stop off. You're always going to need to do that at the end of your tracks. It's going to hear the click your mouse makes at the end. So this is the same process that we're going to repeat in order to record our next few lines. So we're going to go ahead and do that now.
Quiet.
Mortimer shook his head.
Yes.
Okay, so now we found ourselves at a point where we've recorded all of the different voices for our first page, and we're getting a little bit full with all our different tracks. So we want to start to condense this a little bit. So we're going to copy the new sounds that we've made, and then we can paste them into the first track, so we're going to condense everything up. So then we just need to select it, slide it over, so it's all fit nice together. And once we've done that, we can start to eliminate tracks. So we can go down to the one we've made, delete it, click the little X in the corner, and the track is gone. The next track that we recorded should pop up now as the second layer, and we can continue the same process over again, copying the next layer and then pasting it back into our first track, making one nice condensed track. So now as you notice when I paste this up here, I've got a little bit of a gap, so it's important that you make sure they all fit nicely together so you don't end up with dead space in the middle of your sound. So now our first page is all one track, it's nice and condensed and easy to see, and we can move forward making our second page down in our second track. Alright, so we're down on our third page now. We've come to a point where we can apply that whole copying tracks component again. But in this case, it's because we want to see the same piece of sound appear again, kind of like a chorus or a repeating part of the story. So again, we're going to go back, find it where it was early in the story, copy the component of the sound, then scroll back ahead to where we want it in our new page, and we're just going to paste it right onto the end. And that saves us from having to record the same soundbite or the same line of the story over and over again.
We're now going to move beyond using multiple tracks simply for the convenience of recording to applying it in order to have multiple tracks audible at once.
They opened the door and yelled,
"Mortimer,
be quiet!" So what you just heard is our first take of Mortimer's 17 brothers and sisters telling him to be quiet and go to bed. Now obviously we didn't have 17 people, so in order to achieve a similar effect we're going to use layering in our recording. So just like before, we need to get rid of the crosstalk and then line this up, what we just recorded, with the end of our previous speech. We're going to make sure that our line is even with where we started our previous recording. We're going to do the same thing again. They opened the door and yelled,
"Mortimer, be quiet!"
So as you can see, it now sounds like we've got a much larger group, but we still need to repeat the same process of getting rid of the crosstalk and lining up our two sound clips with each other. And we don't need to be too concerned about getting both layers of the same line exactly lined up, because a large group of people wouldn't be talking at exactly the same time.
So now that we have all of our pages recorded, we're at the point where we can condense it into one efficient and easy to work with single track. This way, adding in our soundscape and vocal effects will be more straightforward since navigating the speech recording is significantly simplified.
Okay, so we just did a full playback of all of our sounds so far, and we found one place where we missed some crosstalk. So we're going to go back in and delete that, but this is important because what's going to come next is going to be confusing if you come across this in your takes. So when we delete this, we know that the track's going to slide back ahead. But what's going to happen afterwards is we're going to try and move it to realign it, and it's not going to go anywhere. Now there's a reason for this. So we need to join tracks in order to move them, because if we scroll ahead, we see we've got these two other pieces on the end, and those are acting as roadblocks right now. We can't move our track until they're all one collectively. So we're going to make sure that we highlight all three, go into our edit menu, and scroll down to our clip boundaries, where we're going to click join. Now that it's one collective piece, we can go back and line it up effectively where we want it to sit in the track. You can also have done this by scrolling to the end and moving the last piece of the track first, creating space for the one before it, the one before it, and so on. But by joining the tracks together, now once we move them, they all stay together and move together as one to where we want them to end up. So now we have all our tracks fully edited. This is just for our character voices. We haven't added any effects yet, but all our characters are fully edited. And as you can see, we're getting to be pretty full. So what we want to start doing is condensing this down into one nice efficient track. So if we click these little arrows at the bottom of each track, we can minimize them so we can see what all we've got going on. So since our story is about 10 pages long, we've got about 10 different tracks going on all at once here. So just going to pull all those up so we can see everything together at once. And then we're going to zoom out on our page. You can either just use your trackpad on a Mac or scroll with the mouse or control minus, zooming out so that we can see everything that's going on. Will just make this next process easier. So here's our entire story beginning to end right now. And then we're going to use the same process from before of just cutting and pasting each different part, one in front of the other, so we can make one nice easy track to work with. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that and then show you what we're going to do next. So once we've got them all in one nice track, we should end up with something that looks pretty much like this, one long collective track. I'm just going to join these last few little pieces together. Now you notice that I left the one piece alone underneath, and that's because when you've layered, you can't put them together, as we still do want multi-tracks making noise at once there, so they can't actually become one. So after joining these last little bits together, I would just start to delete all the rest of these extra tracks that I don't need now, and then line up my layering so that I'm good to go to start adding in other sound effects we make with our voices and vocal effects within Audacity itself.
Now that all the character voices are completed, we're going to start adding in our soundscape. This will be composed of external noises such as our voices, ringtones, banging on pots and pans, and so on.
So one key factor when dealing with this soundscape is to make sure that you're using headphones. Now this is important because we really don't want to have crosstalk, so that if we want to do any sort of vocal editing or effects on the actual sound effects that we make, we don't want the computer to also have picked up the previous vocals in the background from our character voices. By using headphones, we won't get any crosstalk, but we can still listen for where our sound effects need to come in, and we can layer to have them going at the same time if we want to. Like I will demonstrate right now as we add in some nice thumping footsteps to the line from the story.
Mortimer by Robert Munsch. One night, Mortimer's mother took him upstairs to go to bed. Thump, 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 thump.
So you'll notice that no sound waves played this time before we were actually making our effect because we weren't picking up any crosstalk. So now with this, just like before, we can crop out that extra space at the start if we want to, though there is no noise there, so you could leave it also. It doesn't really make a difference. And we're going to drag it in place to make sure it's perfectly lined up, because sometimes when you record multiple tracks, it is a little bit offset. Now, as you can see, it might be a little bit complicated right now to line it up with the sound waves from the previous track because it is minimized like that. So if we go in, make our first one nice and big again, we can line up the sound waves a little bit better to help get us in a good spot, as opposed to having just mess around clicking play and pause all the time. Another good tool to use for this is if we actually click in the first track right where we want the sound to start, then we go back down to the new track where we made the sound, that line should appear in the new track, so we can actually line it up start to start, and it should work out perfectly. Now I think I want that sound effect to be a little bit louder because it was a little further away from the microphone. So I can go here and just turn up the gain on the track, and that'll make that play comparatively louder than the initial vocal track. Now the next effect that I want to add in requires a pause in the character voices that we didn't account for when recording. So I'm just going to find that spot and click split so that I can drag the rest of the story a little bit further away and create that nice gap in the speech for me.
One night, Mortimer's mother took him upstairs to go to bed. Thump, 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 thump. When they got upstairs, Mortimer's mother opened the door to his room.
Using headphones to avoid crosstalk and splitting the original track to create space for your sound effects should be the only things you need to consider when adding in your soundscape.
Now that everything has been recorded and arranged, our last step is to add any desired effects through Audacity's Effects menu.
So the first thing that we want to do is use the Effects menu to create better character voices, starting with Mortimer, who we want to make sound more like a child. So we're going to find Mortimer's first line.
Yes.
And now we're going to access the Change Pitch tool to try and make that sound more childlike. So we're going to highlight just the one component that we want to change, then go into the Effects menu up at the top and find Change Pitch. And when we look at this, it's already set for what we want right now, but we want to go higher. So we want to make sure that we're going up in semitones, so it's a positive number. So right now we're just going to click OK and apply that to Mortimer, and let's see what it sounds like.
Yes.
So I'm pretty happy with that change, so we're going to repeat that to all of Mortimer's lines by using the shortcut in the bar to just repeat the same effect.
Clang, clang, rattle, bang, bang, gonna make my noise all day. Clang, clang, rattle, bang, bang, gonna make my noise all day. Clang, clang, rattle, bang, bang, gonna make my noise all day. Clang, clang, rattle, bang, bang, gonna make my noise all day.
So the next change that we want to make is actually to lower some voices. We're going to find where our policemen talk. So here that is here. So we're going to highlight this and go into the same option of change pitch. But this time, instead of getting higher, we want to go lower. So just a couple things I want to point out in this menu. So these numbers here that appear beside the letters, those are the octaves that the note is in. So by going down to a lower number, it's a lower octave, just like if you're moving up or down on a piano. Same with these notes, it's like a scale on a piano, one full octave. So an octave starts at C and works its way up to B. So relative in there is where you're going to change. So we're going to try going down 6 semitones and see how that sounds.
Mortimer, be quiet.
Alright, so that was a little bit lower than we wanted. So let's go back to that menu and see if we can find something that's a little bit more suitable. So that time we tried going down 6 semitones all the way to a B. So let's try going up a little bit more from there. So how about we try G sharp and we'll just go up one more octave, so we're 3 semitones higher than we were.
Mortimer, be quiet.
Alright, that's a whole lot closer, but I think I just want to go one higher maybe. So let's go back to the menu. I just want to show you a second way that we can change this. So instead of picking a note, you can also just directly indicate how many semitones up or down you want to go. So if you want to get higher, it should be a positive number. Lower, it should be a negative number. So I want to go one semitone higher than we just were. So we're just going to type in 1 here and add that on.
Mortimer, be quiet.
Alright, great. So we're happy with that. So we're going to move along to our next effect. And what we want to do is we want to change our policeman's thump, thump, thumps as they walk down the stairs to make them sound a little bit more ominous. So we're going to find that here. Thump, 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 thump. And now we want to scroll down on our tracks to actually find that soundscape effect that we created earlier. So it's down in the bottom. And there are lots of different effects that we could be applying as we look at the menu here. It's pretty full. But what we want to try, what my suggestion would be for something like this, is try with reverb. So we're going to look at reverb. We're going to apply that to our thump, thump, thumps to try and create a bit of a echoey sound. Thump, 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 thump. Very ominous. So we've got one last effect that we want to look at here, and that's for an argument right near the end of the story. So I've just split the clip to make it easy to only apply the effect to the portion that we want, because what happens is the argument changes from being in the room of narration to being in a different room. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually take the treble right out of it to create a muffled sound. So we're going to go into our bass and treble option and just drag treble right out to see what that does. Listen to the difference in the muffled quality from before to after the split.
The child!
Well,
What are you guys doing? You're not helping me.
Hit him a little harder next
He needs to
time.
be
Yep.
asleep.
Yep. So I'm pretty happy with how that sort of changes the sound from being in the room with the argument to maybe being through a wall or down the stairs. But as you can see, these effects are all fairly detailed and fairly complicated, and the best way for you to really figure out how they work is to experiment on your own. Record a short piece and see what you can do with it.
And now, as an example of a final and finished multi-track dramatic reading with soundscape and audio effects, here is our rendition of Mortimer by Robert Munsch.
One night, Mortimer's mother took him upstairs to go to bed. Thump, 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 thump. When they got upstairs, Mortimer's mother opened the door to his room. She threw him on the bed and said,
Mortimer, be quiet.
Mortimer shook his head.
Yes.
She went back down the stairs. Thump, 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 thump. As soon as she got back downstairs, Mortimer started to sing.
Clang, clang, rattle, bang, bang, gonna make my noise all day. Clang, clang, rattle, bang, bang, gonna make my noise all day.
Mortimer's father heard all the noise. He came up the stairs. Thump, 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 thump. He opened the door and yelled,
Mortimer, be quiet!
Mortimer shook his head.
Yes.
His father shut the door. He went back down the stairs. Thump, 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 thump. As soon as he got back downstairs, Mortimer started to sing.
Clang, clang, rattle, bang, bang, gonna make my noise all day. Clang, clang, rattle, bang, bang, gonna make my noise all day.
All of Mortimer's 17 brothers and sisters heard the noise, and they all came up the stairs. Thump, 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 thump. They opened the door and yelled,
Mortimer, be quiet!
Mortimer shook his head.
Yes.
They shut the door. They went back down the stairs. Thump, 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 thump. As soon as they got back downstairs, Mortimer started to sing.
Clang, clang, rattle, bang, bang, gonna make my noise all day. Clang, clang, rattle, bang, bang, gonna make my noise all day.
They got so upset that they called the police. 2 policemen went very slowly up the stairs. Thump, 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 thump. They opened the door and said in very deep, policeman-like voices,
Mortimer, be quiet.
Mortimer shook his head.
Yes.
They shut the door. They went very slowly back down the stairs. Thump, 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 thump. As soon as they got back downstairs, Mortimer started to sing.
Clang, clang, rattle, bang, bang, gonna make my noise all day. Clang, clang, rattle, bang, bang, gonna make my noise all day.
Well, downstairs, no one knew what to do. The mother got into a fight with the policeman. The father got into a fight with the 17 brothers and sisters. Upstairs, Mortimer got so tired waiting for someone to come up that he fell asleep.
The end.